It was a sunny Saturday morning, the kind that felt perfect for a celebration. Lisa had spent the last few days preparing for what she hoped would be the most memorable anniversary yet, 10 years of marriage to Mark, the man she had loved for so long. The house was filled with the sweet scent of fresh flowers, and the breakfast she had made, pancakes, fresh fruit, and coffee, sat ready on the table. She had even picked out a new dress, one she had been saving for a special occasion. Lisa smiled as she adjusted the centerpiece on the dining room table. "This will be perfect," she whispered to herself, excitement bubbling in her chest. She couldn't wait for Mark to see it all, the effort she had put into the day, the love she had invested in their relationship, and the anticipation of making new memories. It was supposed to be their day, their celebration of 10 years of love, joy, and overcoming challenges together. But when Mark walked through the door, Lisa could see something was different. The usual warmth she felt in his presence was gone, replaced by an unsettling coldness. His eyes, which had once sparkled when they looked at her, were now distant. He didn't even acknowledge the beautiful setup she had prepared, nor did he seem to notice the gleaming silver necklace she had bought him as a surprise. "Hey, Mark, is everything okay?" Lisa asked, trying to read his face. She smiled nervously, but something about the way he stood there, staring at the floor, sent a chill down her spine. Mark took a deep breath, his voice breaking the silence. "I think it's time we talked, Lisa." Lisa's stomach dropped. Talk? What was this about? Was it the stress of work? Had something happened to his family? She couldn't have prepared for what was about to come next. "I don't know how to say this, but I think we need to end things," Mark continued, his words slow and deliberate. Lisa's heart raced as she tried to make sense of what he was saying. "End things?" she repeated, her voice trembling. "Mark, what are you talking about?" He looked at her finally, his gaze as cold as his words. "I've found someone else. I've been seeing her for a few months now. I think it's time we move on." "I'm sorry, Lisa. I didn't want to hurt you, but I don't think I can do this anymore." Lisa stood frozen, her mind racing as the words registered in her brain. Found someone else? The room spun around her. She couldn't breathe. She had spent the last decade of her life with this man. She had stood by him through job losses, health issues, family drama, and personal struggles. And now, on their 10th anniversary, he was telling her that all of it had meant nothing. The love, the memories, the promise of forever, nothing. I don't understand," she whispered, her voice barely a sound. "Mark, how could you do this? How could you? Look, I never wanted to hurt you." "This isn't easy for me either," he interrupted, his tone defensive. "But it's over. I'm leaving. I already packed my things." Lisa felt as though the ground had been ripped out from beneath her. Her thoughts scattered like leaves in a storm. She reached out to steady herself against the dining room table, her hands trembling. No, you can't be serious. This is our anniversary, Mark. We've been through so much together. You can't just. I know it's hard to hear, but it's the truth. I'm sorry." His words were final, like a door closing with an unyielding slam. Lisa couldn't even process what was happening. She had always thought of their love as unbreakable, built on a foundation of trust, mutual respect, and shared dreams. But now, it felt as though everything she had known was a lie. Her chest tightened, and tears began to well up in her eyes. She tried to hold them back, but they spilled over, running down her cheeks in silent streams. Mark moved past her, heading for the door. "I'll be out of here in a few hours. I just need to grab my things," he said, voice barely above a whisper. Lisa stood there, stunned, paralyzed by the weight of his words. She could barely hear him as he left, the sound of the door shutting behind him like the final note in a song she never wanted to end. And then, just like that, he was gone. Lisa didn't know how long she stood there, staring at the empty doorway where Mark had just been. The house, once filled with the laughter and memories of their love, now felt hollow. The bright decorations, the table set for two, the gifts, everything seemed to mock her, reminding her of what she had lost. The reality of the situation crashed over her, and for the first time in years, she felt utterly alone. But deep down, somewhere amidst the pain and disbelief, something stirred. A small, quiet voice inside of her whispered, "You deserve better than this." It was a thought she hadn't allowed herself to entertain before. She had always been the one to forgive, to overlook, to try to make things work. But now, with her whole world crashing down around her, Lisa knew she had to make a choice. She could crumble, let this betrayal define her, or she could stand tall and find the strength to move forward, no matter how impossible it seemed. But first, she needed answers. She needed to understand how everything had gone wrong. And she would get them, no matter what it took. The anniversary she had imagined, filled with joy and love, was gone. But Lisa knew she had only just begun a new chapter, a chapter where she would have to face the unimaginable and find a way to rebuild the life she had worked so hard to create. The road ahead would be long, and the pain would be real, but Lisa was no stranger to challenges. She had survived so much before. This time, though, she would do it on her own terms. Lisa stood in the middle of her home, surrounded by the remnants of what was supposed to be a beautiful anniversary celebration. The soft clinking of the silverware, the faint smell of pancakes still lingering in the air, it all felt like a cruel reminder of the reality she couldn't escape. Her chest ached with each breath, the pain of Mark's words still cutting through her like a knife. She hadn't realized how tightly she had been holding on to the idea of their love until it was ripped away, leaving nothing but emptiness in its place. She glanced at the phone Mark had left on the counter. It buzzed with an incoming message, but she didn't need to look at it to know who it was from. His new woman. Lisa's heart sank, but the thought was quickly followed by a wave of anger, hotter than the tears that still stung her eyes. She couldn't allow herself to stay in this place of despair, not for a second longer. The question now was, what was she going to do next? The hours after Mark's departure felt like a blur. Lisa couldn't stop replaying every moment in her mind, the dinners, the vacations, the quiet evenings spent talking about their future. She had poured her heart into their marriage, into their dreams, and she couldn't understand how he could just throw it all away so easily. Her fingers trembled as she grabbed the glass of water on the counter, trying to ground herself in something familiar. But everything felt foreign now, even her own home. Lisa needed answers, and more than that, she needed closure. This was not just a breakup, this was betrayal, and she was determined to understand how it had happened. She couldn't let this chapter close without knowing the truth. She picked up her phone and dialed the number of Sarah, her closest friend. Sarah had always been the one to listen, to offer advice even when it wasn't what Lisa wanted to hear. This time, Lisa wasn't sure what she was looking for, but she needed someone who would understand. "Lisa?" Sarah's voice came through, full of concern. "You okay? What's going on?" "Mark just. He left me," Lisa cut in, her voice cracking. "He left me for another woman. He's been seeing her for months, Sarah. And I didn't know. How could I not know?" There was a pause on the other end of the line, a silence that felt heavier than words. "Oh my God, Lisa. I'm so sorry. I had no idea. How are you holding up?" "I don't know," Lisa replied, her voice small. I'm so angry. I feel like such a fool. I gave him everything. We've been married for 10 years. How could he do this to me?" Sarah's voice softened. "I know it hurts, but listen to me, this is not your fault. He made a choice. You didn't do anything wrong. You're going to get through this. But you need to take some time for yourself and figure out what comes next." Lisa let out a shaky breath. I don't know where to start. What do I do now? How do I even begin to move on from this? First, you take care of yourself, Sarah said firmly. Do what you need to do to feel better, whether it's crying it out, working through your anger, or just getting out of the house for a while. And second, you get the answers you need. Go to him. Ask him what happened. Get the closure you deserve, Lisa. Lisa felt the fire of determination spark inside her. Sarah was right. She needed closure. She couldn't just sit around waiting for Mark to come crawling back, offering empty apologies. If he wanted to end it, then she would make sure she had the truth before she could even think about forgiving him. She didn't know if she could forgive him, but she needed to know everything. After hanging up with Sarah, Lisa found herself pacing back and forth in the living room. Mark's words kept echoing in her mind. I've found someone else. How long had this been going on? Why didn't I see the signs? She hadn't noticed anything different. Their routine had felt just as comfortable as it always had. But then, hadn't it been a little too comfortable? Had she missed the signals of his growing disinterest, his quiet withdrawal from their life? Her phone buzzed again, breaking her from her thoughts. This time, it wasn't Mark. It was a message from one of their mutual friends, Amanda. The message was simple but pointed. I didn't want to tell you this over text, but I think you should know. Mark's been seeing someone else for a while. I don't know all the details, but it's been months. Lisa's heart dropped. She felt her vision blur as her breath became shallow. She quickly dialed Amanda's number, needing to hear the details, needing to understand what had been happening behind her back. Lisa, I'm so sorry, Amanda's voice came through, sounding apologetic. I should have said something sooner, but I didn't know how to bring it up. I know you and Mark were close, and I didn't want to hurt you. Lisa's voice was steady, though her heart was racing. What do you know about this other woman, Amanda? How long has it been going on? I don't know much, but it started a few months ago. He'd been telling people at work about her, but I didn't think it was serious. I never wanted to believe it was happening, Lisa. But now I see what happened. I'm sorry. Each word hit Lisa like a hammer, breaking through her defenses. Months. For months, Mark had been living a double life, hiding his affair while pretending to be the husband who loved her. How had she missed it? The anger surged again, hotter than before. But then, something else hit her: betrayal. It wasn't just Mark's affair that hurt her, it was the fact that he had lied to her face for so long. Every smile, every touch, every whispered, I love you, had been hollow, a lie she had been living. She hung up with Amanda, her mind racing with 1,000 thoughts. It was time to confront Mark. She didn't care about the hurt, the anger, or even the fear. She wanted answers, and she was going to get them. As Lisa prepared to leave, she glanced around the house one last time. This place, once filled with love and laughter, now felt like a cage. She couldn't stay here anymore, not in this moment. Not with these memories. She grabbed her coat and slammed the door behind her, ready to face Mark and demand the truth. The drive to Mark's apartment felt like an eternity. Lisa's knuckles gripped the steering wheel so tightly that her fingers were white. Her mind was a whirlwind of thoughts, swirling in a mix of anger, disbelief, and betrayal. Each mile she drove brought her closer to the man who had once been her everything, and who, in a matter of hours, had become a stranger. When she finally pulled into the parking lot of his building, Lisa took a deep breath, trying to steady her nerves. The apartment was just a few blocks away from their home, a place where they had spent countless evenings together, laughing and planning their future. She could still remember the first time they had moved in together. Mark had been so excited. It had been a new chapter for both of them. But now, that chapter was over, and she was here to close it for good. She parked the car and stared at the apartment building in front of her, the weight of the situation sinking in. This wasn't just a confrontation, it was a reckoning. She had to face him, not just as a woman scorned, but as someone who had given her heart to the wrong person. And she needed answers, answers that would allow her to reclaim control of her life. Lisa walked to the entrance of the building, her steps determined but heavy. When she reached the door to Mark's apartment, she hesitated. Her hand hovered over the doorknob for a moment before she gathered the courage to knock. 3 sharp raps echoed through the hallway. It didn't take long for Mark to open the door, his face a mix of surprise and discomfort. He wasn't expecting her, and Lisa could see the guilt written all over him, though he tried to hide it. He wasn't wearing his wedding ring, and that fact stung more than she expected. She had always worn hers proudly, as a symbol of their commitment, but he had discarded his without a second thought. "Lisa," Mark began, his voice tentative. "I didn't expect you." "Expect me?" Lisa cut him off, her voice steady but seething with emotion. "You didn't expect me to show up after everything you've done? After you ripped our lives apart on our anniversary?" Mark shifted uncomfortably, running a hand through his hair. "Lisa, No," she interrupted again, her voice rising. "You don't get to apologize now, Mark. You don't get to explain away what you did. You made your choice, and now I need to know the truth. How long, Mark? How long have you been seeing her? And why the hell didn't you tell me?" Mark shifted his weight, clearly uncomfortable. He looked at the ground for a moment, then met her gaze, his eyes filled with a mix of guilt and something else, regret, maybe, or shame. "It's been about 4 months, he finally admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. 4 months? 4 months? Lisa repeated, the anger bubbling to the surface again. "That's how long you've been lying to me, pretending everything was fine, while you were out with her?" Mark opened his mouth to speak, but Lisa wasn't finished. She had waited too long for this moment. The truth, raw and painful, needed to be out in the open, no more hiding. "What does she have that I don't, Mark? Why her?" The question felt like a dagger, the answer she didn't want to hear. Mark paused, clearly struggling to find the words. "It's not about her, Lisa. It's about me. I don't know when I started feeling like this. It's been building up for a while now. I don't feel the same anymore. I haven't for a long time." Lisa recoiled at his words, as if they physically struck her. She had always believed that no matter the challenges, they could work things out, that their love was enough. But now, it seemed like all those years of devotion meant nothing. "So, that's it then?" she asked, her voice breaking. "You just woke up one day and decided you didn't want to be married anymore?" Mark shook his head, looking truly conflicted. "No, I didn't wake up one day and decide. It wasn't that simple. But I'm not the same person I was when we first met, and neither are you. We've changed, Lisa. Our relationship changed." Lisa's mind was reeling, but she knew this was the moment when everything would either come into focus or completely shatter. She had been clinging to the idea of their marriage for so long, hoping things would go back to the way they were. But now, she had to face the truth, the reality of what Mark had become, and the reality of her own role in all of it. "You're right," Lisa said quietly, her voice trembling. "We have changed. But I never imagined it would come to this. I never thought you would throw everything away like it was nothing." Mark's expression softened, and for a brief moment, Lisa saw the man she had once known. But it was fleeting, and the truth soon returned, leaving her with a profound emptiness. He stepped toward her, reaching for her hand, but Lisa pulled back. The touch she had once welcomed now felt foreign, like a betrayal. "Lisa, I'm so sorry," Mark said again, his voice thick with emotion. "I never wanted to hurt you. I never wanted it to end like this. But I can't go back. I can't fix this. Tears filled Lisa's eyes, but she held them back, refusing to let him see her weakness. This wasn't about their past anymore, it was about what came next. "Then this is it," she said, her voice steady. "You've made your choice, Mark. And I'm not going to beg you to stay. I deserve better than this. I deserve someone who won't abandon me, someone who won't lie to my face." Mark looked as though he wanted to say something more, but no words came. His silence spoke volumes. Lisa took a step back, her heart heavy but resolute. "I'm done here. I'm done with you, Mark. And I'm done with this chapter of my life." She turned on her heel and walked toward the door, the sound of her footsteps echoing in the silence of the apartment. When she reached the door, she paused, looking over her shoulder one last time. The man she had loved for so long, the man who had promised her forever, stood motionless, the weight of his own regret hanging in the air between them. But Lisa didn't wait for him to speak again. She opened the door and stepped out into the cold night air, the door closing behind her with a finality that left no room for doubt. The cold air felt like a wake-up call as Lisa stepped out of Mark's apartment and into the night. It was as if the world had gone silent, the hum of traffic and the distant sounds of the city no longer existing in her reality. For a moment, everything felt surreal, like she was walking in someone else's shoes. But then the sharp pain of betrayal hit her again, and she realized this was real. This was her life now. She got into her car, the engine rumbling to life, but Lisa didn't move. She just sat there, hands gripping the steering wheel, staring at the street ahead, her mind racing. What now? What was she supposed to do? She thought she had everything figured out. She thought her life was on track, married to a man she loved, with dreams and plans for the future. But now, all of that had crumbled, leaving her with nothing but questions and a deep, aching emptiness. It wasn't until the tears started to fall, silent and uncontrollable, that Lisa realized she wasn't going to find the answers in the emptiness of her car. She needed people. She needed someone to talk to help her process the confusion, the heartbreak, and the anger. So, she reached for her phone. She didn't have to think long about who to call. Her best friend, Sarah, had been there for her through thick and thin. From the day Lisa met Mark to this very moment, Sarah had been by her side, offering support and guidance. There was no way Lisa could face this alone, not after everything that had just happened. Lisa dialed the number, her finger trembling as it hovered over the screen. The phone rang twice before Sarah picked up. "Lisa? Are you okay?" Sarah's voice was soft, almost too soft, as if she could sense the weight of what had happened before Lisa even spoke. "I don't know," Lisa whispered, her voice cracking. "Mark, he left me. He left. On our anniversary." There was a long pause on the other end of the line. Lisa could hear Sarah's sharp intake of breath before she spoke again. "Lisa, but her voice faltered, as though the words didn't come easily. "I confronted him. I went there, and I asked him everything. And he told me it's been happening for months. That he didn't love me anymore," Lisa continued, the floodgates opening. "He's been seeing someone else, Sarah. For 4 months." Sarah was silent for a moment, processing the words, and then she spoke again, her voice full of concern. "Oh, honey. I'm so sorry. I can't even imagine how you must feel right now." Lisa wiped her eyes with the back of her hand, trying to steady her breath. "I thought we had everything. I thought he was my forever. But I guess I was wrong." "Lisa," Sarah said, her tone firm and comforting, "you're not wrong. He is. And no matter how much it hurts right now, you're going to get through this. You are strong, and this does not define you." But Lisa wasn't so sure. How could she be strong when everything she thought she knew about her life had been shattered? How could she be the person she had been before, when the world around her felt like it was falling apart? I don't know how to move on, Sarah, Lisa admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. I don't even know who I am anymore. I gave everything to him, and now I'm just nothing. Sarah's voice softened again, filled with compassion. You're not nothing, Lisa. You're a survivor. You always have been. And no matter what Mark did, that doesn't change who you are. Lisa sniffled, wiping her nose with a tissue. I just don't know how to make sense of it. How do I let go of someone who was supposed to be my forever? How do I even begin to move forward when I'm so lost? One step at a time, Sarah said. You don't have to figure everything out right now. But you will. I promise. And I'll be right here with you, every step of the way. Lisa took a deep breath and nodded, even though Sarah couldn't see her. Thank you. I really need you right now. I've got you, Sarah replied. Always. After hanging up, Lisa sat in her car for a few more minutes, the tears still falling, but this time, something was different. There was a flicker of light in the darkness, a reminder that she wasn't truly alone. Sarah's words echoed in her mind, one step at a time. That was the only way forward. She didn't need all the answers right now. What she needed was time to heal and people to help her along the way. As Lisa drove home that night, the weight of the world still on her shoulders, she realized she couldn't stay in this place of pain forever. She had to keep moving, even if it was just for the sake of her own survival. And with every passing mile, she felt herself growing stronger, little by little. The days that followed were a blur of emotions, sadness, anger, frustration, and confusion. Lisa was a whirlwind of conflicting feelings, each one pulling her in different directions. She spent hours alone in her apartment, staring at the walls, trying to make sense of what had happened. The person she had shared so much with had become a stranger in the blink of an eye. The worst part wasn't the betrayal, though. It was the silence. The emptiness of not hearing Mark's voice, of not seeing him walk through the door. She realized how much she had depended on him, how much she had woven him into the fabric of her life. It felt as though she had lost a part of herself. But as the days passed, Lisa began to find small moments of clarity. She began to clean out the remnants of their life together, sorting through old photographs, love letters, and mementos that once held so much meaning. Each piece she discarded felt like a small step toward freeing herself from the past. She also sought comfort in her family, leaning on her parents and siblings, who offered her the love and support she needed during this difficult time. Her mother, in particular, had been a pillar of strength, reminding Lisa that she was resilient and that she would come out of this stronger than before. But despite the support, there were still moments of doubt. The hurt was deep, and Lisa struggled with the feeling that something had been taken from her, something she could never get back. She couldn't shake the feeling of being robbed of her future with Mark, the life they had promised each other. But little by little, Lisa began to shift her perspective. She realized that this wasn't the end of her story. This was just another chapter, one that she had the power to write herself. Lisa had made strides in healing. The past few weeks had been an emotional roller coaster, but with the support of her family and friends, she felt like she was beginning to put the pieces of her life back together. The pain was still there, lingering in the background, but it wasn't as overwhelming. She had come to terms with the fact that Mark was no longer a part of her life. Yet, despite all her progress, something was missing. A sense of peace, of finality, seemed just out of reach. Lisa had convinced herself that it was time to move forward. She had focused on her career, rekindled old friendships, and started taking better care of herself. For the first time in months, she felt like she was beginning to rediscover who she was outside of her marriage. But everything changed when a letter arrived. It was an unassuming envelope, no return address, just her name written in a hurried, uneven hand. Lisa stared at it for a moment, a sense of unease creeping up her spine. She had received similar letters from Mark over the past few weeks, apologies, explanations, excuses, but she had thrown them away without a second thought. This one felt different, though. There was something about it that seemed urgent, as if whoever had written it wanted to reach her before she could discard it. With a mixture of hesitation and curiosity, Lisa opened the envelope. Inside was a single sheet of paper, folded neatly in half. She unfolded it and began to read. Lisa, I know you probably don't want to hear from me again. I've been trying to find the right words, but I'm afraid it's too late. I left you because of things I never had the courage to face. I've been hiding the truth for years, and I couldn't live with myself any longer. You deserve to know everything. Lisa's heart raced. She could hardly read through the trembling words. She felt her stomach twist into knots. What could Mark possibly want to say now? The letter continued. The truth is, I wasn't just seeing someone else. I've been in a secret relationship for over 2 years, before we even got married. The person I was with, was someone you know. Someone you trust. I couldn't keep up the lie anymore, and when I saw you last, I knew I had to be honest, even if it cost me everything. Lisa dropped the letter, her hand shaking violently. Her heart hammered in her chest, and she felt the ground beneath her feet begin to spin. The words blurred in front of her eyes. Someone you know. Someone you trust. Who could it possibly be? With a breathless gasp, she thought back to the people closest to her. It could be anyone, her friends, her family. But no, she couldn't believe it. Who could betray her like that? No one. It had to be a mistake. But the letter kept haunting her, every word echoing in her mind. She couldn't ignore it. She had to know the truth. With trembling hands, she grabbed her phone and dialed the number of her best friend, Sarah. It had been a few days since they last spoke, and Lisa needed someone to help her make sense of this. Sarah picked up after the first ring. Lisa, what's wrong? You sound upset. Lisa's voice cracked. I just got a letter from Mark. Sarah's voice instantly grew serious. A letter? What's in it? He says he's been seeing someone else for years, Lisa whispered, barely able to get the words out. But, that's not the worst part. The worst part is, he says the person is someone I know. Someone I trust. There was a long silence on the other end of the line. Lisa could practically hear Sarah processing the information, the weight of the revelation sinking in. Lisa, are you sure this letter is real? Sarah asked cautiously. It could be a prank or... I don't know, something he wrote in a moment of guilt. Are you sure he's telling the truth? Lisa shook her head, her thoughts spiraling. I don't know, but I have to find out. If he's lying to me. If I've been betrayed by someone I trusted, I need to know who it is. Okay. But don't rush into anything. Let's take this slow, Sarah said, her voice full of concern. I'll be here for you no matter what happens. Lisa took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the moment settle over her. Thanks, Sarah. I don't know what I would do without you right now. They talked for a while longer, trying to make sense of the situation, but Lisa's mind was consumed with a singular thought: who could it be? The next few days were a blur. Lisa couldn't concentrate at work, and she found herself obsessively replaying the letter over and over in her mind. She tried to reach out to Mark for answers, but he wasn't returning her calls or messages. The more she tried to dig, the deeper the mystery seemed to become. The one thing she was sure of, though, was that she couldn't keep running from this. She had to face it head-on. Finally, after a sleepless night spent pondering all the possible suspects, Lisa did something she had never done before. She contacted the one person she thought would never betray her, her sister, Rachel. They had always been close, sharing everything with each other since childhood. Rachel had been a witness to Lisa's entire relationship with Mark. If anyone knew the truth, it would be her. When Rachel answered the phone, she sounded distant. "Hey, Lise. What's up?" "I need to ask you something," Lisa said, her voice steady, though her stomach churned. "Mark sent me a letter, and he says he's been seeing someone else. He says it's someone I know. I need to know, Rachel, is there something I'm missing?" There was a pause. A long, painful pause. Then Rachel spoke, her voice strained. "Lisa. I never wanted you to find out this way, but I have to tell you. I was the one Mark was seeing." Lisa's world seemed to shatter in that moment. Her body went cold, and she could hardly breathe as her mind struggled to comprehend what her sister had just confessed. The revelation that Rachel had been the other woman shattered Lisa in ways she hadn't thought possible. Her sister, the person who had been by her side through thick and thin, had betrayed her in the most devastating way. As Lisa sat there on the couch, the weight of the truth pressing down on her chest, she couldn't comprehend what had just happened. The phone call with Rachel had been brief, but it felt like an eternity. Rachel had apologized, her voice breaking with emotion, but the damage was done. Lisa barely spoke a word as her sister poured out her guilt and regret, each apology sounding hollow in the face of such a deep betrayal. For hours, Lisa sat in silence, her mind reeling. How could this happen? How could the two people she trusted most in the world do this to her? The questions swirled endlessly, but no answer seemed to make the pain go away. She couldn't even cry, she felt too numb, too disconnected from reality to allow herself that release. The next day, Lisa decided to confront Mark. He had been avoiding her calls and messages for days, but now, there was no running from the truth. She was determined to hear it from him directly, why he did what he did and how long it had been going on. She called him again, her finger hovering over the send button. Her heart was racing, but she had to know. When Mark finally picked up, his voice was soft, almost apologetic. "Lisa, I wasn't expecting you to call." "Of course you weren't," Lisa snapped, her voice trembling with anger and hurt. "Why haven't you been answering me? Why didn't you tell me the truth?" "Lisa, I'm sorry. I really am. I know there's no excuse for what I did," Mark said. "But you have to understand, this wasn't something I planned. It just happened. And when I realized how deep I had gotten into this, I didn't know how to get out of it. It wasn't about you. It was about me and my inability to confront what I was feeling." Lisa couldn't believe what she was hearing. His words were empty, self-serving, and failed to address the deep betrayal he had committed. "It wasn't about me," she said, her voice thick with disbelief. "You think that doesn't involve me? You think your lies, your affair, didn't affect me? I trusted you with everything. You were my partner, Mark. And you destroyed that." There was a long silence on the other end of the line. Lisa's pulse pounded in her ears. "I'm so sorry," Mark whispered, but his apology only made her more furious. The words were meaningless now. "Sorry doesn't fix this," Lisa replied, her voice cold and steady. "Sorry doesn't give me back the trust you destroyed. Sorry doesn't erase the pain." As the conversation came to an end, Lisa felt a strange sense of closure. It wasn't the closure she had expected, but it was enough. Mark hadn't offered any real answers, and he certainly hadn't given her the apology she deserved. But the more she thought about it, the more she realized she didn't need his answers to move forward. She didn't need his closure. Over the next few weeks, Lisa cut ties with both Mark and Rachel. The decision wasn't easy, but it was necessary. She knew that she couldn't keep surrounding herself with people who had hurt her in such profound ways. It wasn't about forgiveness, not yet, at least. It was about protecting herself, finding peace, and reclaiming her life. Despite the heartache, Lisa started to rebuild. She returned to therapy, where she could process the overwhelming feelings of betrayal and hurt. It wasn't a quick fix, but with time, she began to understand that healing was a journey, not a destination. Slowly, she started to find herself again, who she was without Mark, without Rachel, without the life she had once known. The community, too, was affected by Lisa's story. It wasn't just a personal tragedy, it was a collective one. Everyone who knew Lisa, from friends to co-workers to distant acquaintances, felt the ripples of her pain. People who had once been close to Mark and Rachel now found themselves questioning their relationships with them. Gossip spread, but Lisa didn't care. She couldn't be concerned with how others saw her. This was her journey, and she had to walk it alone, no matter how uncomfortable it made everyone else. But there was a silver lining. In the aftermath of the chaos, Lisa discovered a new sense of strength. She learned that she wasn't defined by her relationship, by her sister's betrayal, or by Mark's infidelity. She was strong in her own right, capable of surviving the darkest moments and rising above them. A few months later, Lisa sat in a quiet cafe, reflecting on everything that had happened. She had moved into a new apartment, one that she loved. It was small, but it was hers. She had reconnected with friends and family who had supported her through the hardest times. She had found a renewed sense of purpose at work, and even taken up painting again, a hobby she had forgotten about in the chaos of her marriage. But the most surprising thing of all was her own growth. She had gone from someone who thought her life was defined by others to someone who realized that her worth came from within. She had faced betrayal, heartbreak, and loss, and she had survived. As she sipped her coffee, Lisa found herself thinking about Mark and Rachel. She had no desire to reconcile with either of them, not now, not ever. The truth was, she didn't need them. She had everything she needed right here, in this moment. The power to move forward, to shape her own future, was in her hands. And in that moment, Lisa smiled. Reflection: Lisa's story isn't just about betrayal, it's about reclaiming your life after everything you thought you knew comes crashing down. It's a reminder that, no matter how dark the road may seem, we all have the strength to move forward. Sometimes, the hardest lessons are the ones that show us just how resilient we truly are. What would you do if you were in Lisa's shoes? Would you find it in your heart to forgive, or would you walk away for good? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. The feeling of accomplishment was like nothing Jake had ever experienced before. He had come a long way from the small-town kid who had once doubted his abilities. Now, he was part of a team that was making history. As the internship came to a close, Jake sat down with Karen for a final meeting. She looked at him with a proud smile. "You've done incredible work this summer, Jake," she said. "You're a natural at this, and I see a bright future ahead for you here at Tesla." Jake was speechless. His mind raced with thoughts of what was to come. This internship had changed everything for him. It wasn't just a summer job, it had become the beginning of a new chapter in his life. Tesla had given him the opportunity to prove himself, and now he had a chance to continue growing in a company that shared his values and ambitions. As he boarded the plane back to school, Jake couldn't help but feel a sense of pride. The journey wasn't over yet. In fact, it was just beginning. With his newfound confidence and the lessons he had learned at Tesla, Jake knew that he was ready to take on whatever challenges lay ahead. The phone call with Elon Musk had been the spark, but it was his own determination, hard work, and the incredible people he had met along the way that had truly shaped his future.